reassembly. And the topic is solid waste and recycling in Petersburg. The Assembly members, President and Utility Director Hagerman and Public Works Director Cotta, the manager, and a few people in the audience and reporters. So Mr. Cotta has a presentation to put together, so maybe that would be a good way to start. When we decided to have this work session, we were going to try to keep it to an hour and a half, so if we get it wrapped up by 8 o'clock-ish, we'll see what happens. So, Chris, if you would, please.
Okay.
Unless someone else has to say. Okay, well, Dave. Tide must have changed.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I wasn't sure. Record Assembly member Lynn.
Always an adventure, isn't it?
We're going to start with the presentation by Chris. Put the other off. You good with that?
Yeah, since there wasn't a real defined agenda, the manager and I thought, just a brief presentation with some general ideas and statistics would be a good idea, and then I'll kind of step back and see where the discussion goes from there. Looks like everybody's got a copy of the short presentation, so I'm just going to start going through it here. A little bit of information on solid waste and recycling in Petersburg. As part of this, we're going to go through some different aspects of solid waste and recycling here. We'll do a little overview. We're going to talk about ways that we can reduce our solid waste. We'll summarize some of the different concepts in the first two sections. I'll give a few of the things that we're going to do, a few of the next steps we are already planning to take in the department, and then we'll open the floor for questions and comments. So, first part of our overview, Petersburg ships approximately 175 tons of garbage out each month, or 2,100 tons a year. And in addition to that, we ship approximately 23 tons of recyclable materials a month, or 276 tons per year. Refuse and recyclables are shipped in bales via Alaska Marine Lines to Republic Services in Seattle. From there, recyclables go to various material recovery facilities, or MRFs, for sorting and subsequent sale, while garbage is shipped to Republic's Roosevelt landfill in Klickitat County, Washington, for disposal. The Borough started commingled recycling pickup in 2014, initially using blue bags. Petersburg Indian Association and later Ruger's Trucking were engaged to collect the blue bags and deliver them to the baling facility. The contract with Ruger's Trucking was costing $90,000 annually, in addition to the $20,000 annual cost for the blue bags. The Borough converted to handling the commingled curbside pickup of recyclables in January 2016. An additional collection truck was purchased at a cost of $207,476, along with a supply of blue recycling carts, which cost $74,080. No additional staff were added to begin handling the curbside pickup. In order to allow existing staff time to pick up the recycling routes, baler hours were reduced on weekdays. From 2016 through 2017, recycling commodities prices, that is cardboard, plastic, aluminum, and other items, allowed the Borough to pay less for disposal of recyclable material than it cost for disposal of garbage. This changed starting in late 2017 with the sudden and unexpected collapse of recyclable commodity prices. In 2017, a combination of trade disputes with China and changes in the Chinese acceptance rate of worldwide recyclable material upset the commodities markets and resulted in a collapse of recycling commodity prices in late 2017 and early 2018. Throughout 2018, we have seen uneven trends where from month to month the recyclable material can pay for itself or become more expensive to dispose of than regular solid waste. This up and down trend is not expected to change over the next several years, and due to the uncertainty and volatility in the commodities markets, there is no accurate method to forecast whether Petersburg's recycling program can break even at this time. Currently, the borough does not recycle glass or pick it up curbside except at certain businesses with high volume. This is mainly due to the fact that glass has little value on the recycling market. Instead, glass is dropped off at the borough's drop-off locations, or glass dropped off at the borough's drop-off locations is crushed and used in landfill. Glass disposed of in this manner saves money for the borough through avoiding the disposal fee from Republic. Informal feedback from the community, the majority of comments support continued recycling in the community. So what are some ways that we can reduce our solid waste? One of those ways, of course, is recycling. Another one is diversion and reduction. And a third way is reuse. And I'm just going to kind of go through those concepts one by one. We'll talk about recycling first. And this is the borough's curbside or commingled recycling program, also called single stream recycling because everything goes in one can. The borough currently offers curbside commingled recycling pickup of various commodities, not including glass, styrofoam, and film type plastic or plastic bags. This effort is conducted by the borough's sanitation employees. Petersburg's overall recycling rate is currently about 11.5% in 2018. And that number represents the percentage of Petersburg's solid waste that is baled and shipped to Republic for recycling. So not going to a landfill down south, but actually being shipped, to the material recovery facilities for recycling.
Is that by weight?
Yeah. It's about 80% right now. Yep. And, that figure, of course, is lower than what is possible. But, and that's, part of the effort we're having right now is to try and get people to clean up the recyclable stream, but also we need to do a little bit more on educating them on what kinds of things they can recycle. Because I think there's still stuff that is going in the trash. It could probably be, recycled or diverted in other ways. We'll talk about that later. The borough's current sanitation rate structure does not significantly penalize households or businesses that do not recycle. An example of such a penalty could be a rate structure that makes recycling mandatory, or rate increases to larger services, the bigger cans, while leaving smaller service sizes at proportionally lower per gallon rates. So encouraging people to downsize a little more than we do. We have an incentive rate for the lowest service size, but we don't scale it up and make it proportionally more expensive, as you get bigger right now. The borough currently spends very little on marketing for recycling in the community. Studies have shown that frequent reminders and helpful hints can make a difference on how households and businesses perform. If the Borough Assembly decides to continue to support recycling, it would be valuable to adopt an ongoing campaign to remind everyone about recycling program requirements. In addition to the commingled program, we do have some drop-off options for recyclables. And so our drop-off centers, we currently have one drop-off location at the baler consisting of several outside dumpsters that are accessible year-round. We take plastics, aluminum, tin, and glass at that location all year-round, 24/7. Due to moisture problems, we do not currently offer any outside dumpsters for paper or cardboard recyclables. These may be dropped off for free during baler hours. In addition to the glass drop-off dumpster at the baler, there is also a glass dumpster located in a public works yard, which is accessible year-round. In the past, additional recyclable drop-off locations have included the drive-down parking lot, Hammer and Weecon Grocery, and Scal Bay Fire Hall. However, these less supervised locations were often used as trash disposal sites by unscrupulous individuals, contaminating the entire process. So none of those are in service anymore. So aside from recycling, another really important way to reduce solid waste is diversion and reduction. This is basically reducing the amount of material that goes into your solid waste stream. It includes recycling, but it also includes other things like source reduction, reuse of materials, and composting. The average diversion rate in the United States hovers around 35% and has been close to that level for several years of available data up through 2015. That was the most recent statistics I could find. That's off the EPA's website. Some municipalities have diversion goals far exceeding that figure. And if we define diversion as the amount of waste material that is not baled and shipped south as municipal solid waste, in other words, that portion of our waste that is not shipped south to a landfill, then Petersburg's overall diversion rate in 2018 is approximately 29%. That 29% number includes baled recyclables, metal and wood delivered to Petersburg's landfill, and the glass that we dispose of. In reality, our diversion rate is probably a little bit higher since many folks in Petersburg already practice methods of diversion that are not tracked by the sanitation department. Some examples include reuse of items when possible, composting, and grinding food waste for disposal in the sewer system rather than in the garbage can. And a lot of people do those things, and we don't track them in the department, so we don't really have any idea how much of that is happening. So we can't really include it in our diversion number. And then we have the concept of reduction, which is the process of reducing the amount of solid waste produced. For every ton of material that is not put in the waste stream, the borough saves around $120. As an example, it is estimated the community currently disposes of 40 tons of glass each year in the landfill, resulting in a savings of $4,800 in disposal costs if that glass were to be shipped out for disposal. So diversion and reduction continued. What can I do? So what are some of the things people can do to contribute that reduction of solid waste? One is by considering the life cycle of each item acquired and how much waste is likely to be produced by that item. We can make more informed buying choices and reduce the overall impact to our solid waste stream. Community members can help in this area by purchasing in bulk when possible, buying higher quality, durable goods that will last longer and require less frequent replacement, dropping glass containers off at one of the 2 drop-off locations, donating unwanted useful goods to charity instead of discarding, and choosing to purchase items that come in reusable and or recyclable containers. Grinding food waste is also another way. We talked about that. Although beyond the scope of this discussion, a home composting system is also a great way to reduce the weight and volume of a household's solid waste. Another way to divert things from the MSW stream is metal items like appliances, junk vehicles, tin roofing, siding, metal pipe. Those things should be disposed of in the metals area at the landfill. Although not part of the borough's curbside recycling program, metal items that are placed in the landfill are periodically sold in bulk for scrap and are ultimately recycled once they are transported off the island. Most of the time, this process is either break even, as in 2018, or the borough might receive some revenue from the metal. Some past years we have, depending on market price. Wood items, like waste logs and brush, construction, demolition, wood scraps, wooden furniture, etc., should be taken to the landfill and are placed in a designated area and made available for salvage on designated salvage days. Some trees and brush are often diverted to the wastewater plant where they are chipped up and used in the wastewater department's composting program. Any remaining wood in the pile is burned on a weekly basis. This avoids having to ship it out for disposal. Then we'll talk about reuse a little bit. The reuse of materials in the community is a great way to reduce the amount of solid waste produced and also lessens our reliance on new consumer goods, which are future trash. An example is working with friends and neighbors to avoid buying new if used items are available and appropriate. The Borough's salvage program also encourages reuse of wood and metal items that would otherwise be burned or shipped off the island. Many household and workshop chemicals are considered hazardous waste, and working with other community members to share supplies when possible can help to cut down on the amount of volume and costs associated with disposal of these items. It's good to share with a friend or offer it up on social media for free to someone who needs it instead of trash. And just to kind of summarize a few of the things we just talked about, I'd like to mention again that the majority of comments we've received from the public support continued recycling. And that is anecdotal evidence, it's not scientific. We don't necessarily know if those comments we've received, the proportion of positive to negative comments reflects, what the community wants as a whole. But we asked for feedback, and the feedback we got was overwhelmingly that, in support of the recycling program.
500.
No, it wasn't anything like that. It was, I want to say it was around 40
Okay.
that I got. Not all were written, some were verbal. But
So it'd be worthwhile trying to get a broader perspective, probably.
I think so, yeah. At present, recycling commodity prices are extremely unpredictable and not likely to stabilize in the near term. It may be several years before the markets are consistent enough to draw conclusions on the long-term profit and loss of recycling. There are additional opportunities in the community to recycle, divert, and reuse materials, reducing the borough's solid waste volume and cost. However, there will need to be additional resources expended to improve our situation. Proactive communication and engagement with the public, business community, and other government entities is needed to improve the programs available and their effectiveness. So the next steps do need to develop a more comprehensive, proactive communication and education program for solid waste disposal. If the community desires, move toward mandatory recycling through structured rate adjustments with realistic diversion goals. Engage with local businesses and government organizations to discuss what can be done to help them with solid waste and recycling issues. And encourage the community at large to proactively engage on these issues. A few of the things that we're planning on doing in the department to this end would be some more print ads, specifically in the paper. We've hit radio, we've hit the website, social media presence. We're going to continue to do that, but we want to try and capture everybody that we can. And we keep hearing from folks, well, I didn't hear that on the radio, or I didn't see it on Facebook, and so we need to think about how can we kind of get everyone working on the same plan. And so more print ads. We're going to do some door hangs. We can print those door hangs, and that's a good way to reach individual customers. You put something on their door, they'll likely see it sooner or later. But we want to do some individual outreach to local businesses and government agencies. We've already started doing that. We want to do more of it. I'm going to be doing a little bit of field research coming up. I'll be at Southeast Conference next week. I'm going to be meeting with Juneau's solid waste and recycling coordinator while I'm there, to talk about their programs and see a little bit of what they're doing up there. And then I have a training conference in Seattle. While I'm down in that area, I'm going to meet up with Republic and go look at the landfill, tour that, look at the materials recovering facilities, get some pictures. And I do intend to come back, and I'm going to do a little pictorial presentation for the assembly on what I find. I think Jeff was already planning to do that at one point, but he didn't quite. He and the Republic guy weren't able to meet up. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about that we're going to do is we are getting a budget together for a rate study for this next budget year. And that'll be part of my budget proposal. And I wanted to include, the last time we did a rate study, we weren't doing commingled recycling. So I want to include that recycling program in the rate study so that we can look at how much that costs, per service level and so forth. So those are a few of the things we're gonna be doing to try and solve some of these solid waste issues that we have. That's the end of my presentation, and so I'll take questions or comments at this time.
Start with, is there any questions from the assembly members? Chris, but I know this is going to be a discussion we'll be having at the assembly level in the meetings. I'm sure when it comes to rate increases or mandatory recycling, and it's going to be
Talk for a few minutes, Chris, about the enterprise fund and where we stand in terms of the outgo and the income of funds.
Well, without having the numbers right at hand, what I could tell you is that the enterprise fund, with the current rate structure, has been, building reserves each year. We have enough reserves available in the fund and in the motor pool, to support the proposed $600,000 cost of a new baler. And but our rate increases came to an end with the current budget year. And so we don't feel like we need to raise rates right now, but we do want to take a look at what is needed down the line. So there won't be any, I think I said this at the previous assembly meeting, we're not proposing any rate increases until we have a chance to look at the rates with a consultant.
Those rate increases that were the last study, that was bumped up for like 3 years, a little bit incrementally, wasn't it? Or if I recall right, Carl?
Actually about 5 years.
Yeah, it was.
It was bumped up though, yeah.
Yeah, and it was a fixed percent. I want to say it was 2.5% per year.
Kind of just to, since we're talking the financial health or whatever of the enterprise fund, it would expand on what Bob was asking there. So I know there's been discussion of needing a new truck, a new recycle truck. So that's roughly the same price as what you had listed in here, 280 or whatever the heck the number was.
Yep.
So, and so we need to figure that into the equation as well as a cost then? Is that how?
Or is that already a vehicle that's in the motor pool?
There, we have 3 trucks right now, and 2 of them are newer. One is an older truck, and it was up for replacement, I believe, in the current budget year. We decided to extend it because it's in decent shape. So right now, we're not paying replacement costs on 3 trucks. We're paying replacement on 2 trucks, and then only like a little bit of inflationary adjustment on the 3rd truck. When we reach the end of the life of that older truck, which will probably be happening sometime in the next few years. Still in good shape, as far as I know at this point. But when that reaches the end of its lifespan, then we'll have to talk about replacing that truck, and that would be a good point to know if the community wants to continue forward with recycling or not. Because if the community does not want to move forward with commingled recycling past that point, then, you know, that's a capital purchase that we would probably not, you know, not make.
I guess that was kind of what I was wondering, because if we have to purchase a new truck, that's gonna add to the expense of recycling material, so.
Yeah, it definitely adds to the cost of the program.
My second question, I guess, is I've heard probably the biggest change we could make in terms of recycling is to add more of your commercial customers. That would make your biggest change. But I'm hearing, and you may have heard it also, that we aren't being as, how do I want to say it, as accommodating as what some folks think. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But would it be worthwhile to send a, some kind of a letter to our commercial customers or all folks and see what, what the expectations are and what we might want to, how we could either do it better or what we aren't doing, we could do better. I don't know whether that's worthwhile or not. I'm asking, Chris.
Yeah, well, I think it definitely is worthwhile, and that's part of the outreach I was talking about. We've done some of that. You know, for instance, we've been working with, just to give an example, local coffee shops, you know, on what types of things are acceptable in the recycling stream and what are not. You know, they have a high volume operation, and, you know, they don't necessarily have time to rinse out each and every container before it goes in the can. With the standards that we have to adhere to now, you know, we need for everything that goes into that can to be clean. And so it's been a communication process with the coffee shops of, hey, you know, if you don't have time to rinse a milk jug, you know, just go ahead and put it in the trash instead of putting it in the recycling. You know, we'd much rather you recycle it, but if it doesn't work out for you, if you can't be efficient enough, you know, it's better to put it in the trash than put it in the recycle can, because then it contaminates all those recyclables. So that's an ongoing conversation we've been having with folks, and we're trying to understand their needs and work with them, and also get them to understand where we're coming from, what we require, because we don't want to get hit with those contamination charges if we, you know, send a load down that's too dirty. And so, but yes, I think it's worthwhile to do more of that, you know, and reach out, not necessarily wait till there's a problem, but reach out to people and say, hey, what can we do to help you with, you know, not only recycling, but just solid waste in general? What concerns do you have? You know?
Chris, can you explain the contamination charge?
So the contamination charge, the memo that we got was, they said that if we went above 10% contamination in our recyclable stream, that they would start applying contamination charges of up to $150 a ton.
On top of?
On top of the other costs. So it will more than double the cost of disposal.
10%?
More than 10% contamination.
That's 10% of each item, or how is that?
Like if we send them a load of commingles, if more than 10% of that load by weight is material that they can't recycle, that they have to take out and send to a landfill as trash, then they'll hit us with those contamination fees.
Have we had that happen?
We have not.
So when we send something out to be recycled, what's the process for them seeing how much of it is not recyclable material? How do they do that? Do they just take a random snapshot of a bale or 2 bales off of a load? How do they determine how much of it's contaminated?
I'm not sure about that. I think the first screen that they do is visual. You know, their operator's got to look at what's coming out of the container, and if it looks clean, you know, they know what's up to their standards. If it looks clean, they're probably just gonna go ahead and break it up and send it on out. If they think there's too much contamination in there, then I think they will weigh the different.
So when you say contamination, it's not the stuff that they want to see in there. It doesn't mean that there is milk inside of the milk jug.
Oh, it
means-
could be.
So they will
It could
look
be.
they will look at a milk jug to see if it's been washed out or something?
They have to cut the bale
Yeah.
straps on every bale that comes out of the
Yeah,
pan.
they've
So
gotta
it
cut the bales
comes
open.
apart and they can see it.
And so if there's one milk jug in that whole bale that's contaminated, they're probably that's not gonna alert them, you know. But if half of the milk jugs are dirty, then they're probably gonna take a closer look at it and.
Then it contaminates the
Just a
cardboard and
comment.
stuff like that as well.
Right.
Just one, all right to take a comment?
Sure, yeah.
There was a video of New Jersey containers arriving in China, and it gave a very vivid description of contaminated. Just what contamination meant is when the door was open, there was a flood of liquid coming out, contaminated. I mean, not just a few gallons, but, you know, like 50, 60 gallons. And so that was one of the reasons why they stopped accepting our stuff.
They typically haven't mentioned it to us in the past unless it's way over their allowable percentage. And but I can ask them how they arrive at that number. You know, that might be useful to know.
It's an important thing for us to remember. I mean, they are looking at this stuff, and it can cost us, again, not yet, but it can cost us quite a bit of money if they start not liking what we're sending them.
Just to follow up on that, so you were saying earlier that if you send wet cardboard, that's considered contaminated of any type of cardboard.
Yeah, once,
And so, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
So that, but excuse me, it's almost impossible to keep it dry here, unless you guys know something I don't know, but.
Well, it usually will stay dry in the carts. If you put it in the cart, close the lid. You know, once in a while we have a bad storm or something, a bunch of carts blow over and, you know, it will get wet. And in that case, you know, then we've got to, when we dump loads, we've got to decide, all right, is it too wet, you know? And sometimes we have to pull stuff out. You know, if we see a lot of wet cardboard or something, we'll pull that out and segregate it and just put it in the trash. Because we don't, if we send it to them, they're gonna key on that. But if you put it in the cart and it's dry when it goes in the cart, keep the lid closed, then it should be dry when we pick it up. And a lot of the stuff we get, like from the cardboard we get from the businesses in town, they're pretty good about keeping it dry. You know, we had a process when we first started getting cardboard from them that, you know, some businesses weren't keeping it in a protected location. And so I think we've pretty well sorted out all those issues, and we're getting good, clean cardboard from folks now.
And then you said earlier that we have metal going into the landfill, but I've also used the metal pile out there and put, you know, metal on the metal pile. Is there any way to divert that out, or I'm still not quite understanding. You said it's gone in. Is it possible to sort the differences? Metal that's going in there?
Well, I'm not sure I understand your
Metal into
question.
the landfill or the metal
Yeah,
into the solid waste stream?
And I'm sorry, solid waste stream, you're right. You were saying earlier that it did. Is there a way to be better at pulling that out so we can send it out under the metal pile, the metal scrap?
There might be, you know. That's something I would like to look at. I don't have the answer right now, but there is a lot of metal waste that goes into MSW, and you know, we don't have a real good system right now for, you know, capturing that. You know, if somebody's got a big load of metal, they bring it up to the landfill and put it there. But if somebody's got, you know, 10 or 15 pounds of steel waste, you know, it's not really something we want in recycling can, but it is something that, you know, could be ultimately recycled if it goes into the metal pile. So that's something that probably should be looked at, just kind of look around and see, well, are there other places that have an efficient way to divert that material out?
A question about the metal. We're still letting salvage people go into the garbage dump twice a week, so, I mean, the easy to get at valuable metal is probably picked up and put in a truck and hauled away. Is that happening, or do you think that, like Bob says, is there a way to still capture enough, higher value metal to have someone actually sort it? I mean, that's probably if you have to pay somebody to do it, is it gonna break even, or, I mean, who knows, I guess?
Yeah, metal scrap prices haven't been as good in recent years. You probably know that, with the business you're in. But, and a lot of the good stuff does get high graded, that's just part of running a salvage program. I mean, we don't say, hey, no, you can't take any copper, you can't take any aluminum. I mean, if you pay the salvage fee, we'll let you take what's in the pile.
That kind of helps the diversion rate, actually, because it doesn't end up getting shipped out, I guess.
Yeah.
If we changed to a daily salvage permit and did away with the annual permit, cut down a lot of the commercial activity.
Oh, it did? Okay, yeah, it was just 2 days instead of 7 days a week. Yeah.
Question. How does the PIA's program with the composting enter into this? Are they still working with you folks?
They're not working with us. It's a pretty small scale operation they've got these days. A while back, they were trying to do something on a bigger scale, and we were thinking maybe there was some opportunities there to partner up with them, but they got rid of their larger composters, and what they're doing now is pretty small operation. They're concentrating on a product that they developed. It's like basically garden soil that they're making out of fish waste. So they're getting fish waste from some of the processors.
Juno has a new business, composting, that is plans for denting the costs of operation of their programs.
Yeah.
What all can be composted? Cardboard?
Yeah, you can compost that. A lot of stuff that's organic. I don't know as much about it as I'd like to. That's one of the things I want to learn about while I'm in Juneau. That the composting operation you're talking about, that's a private enterprise. I think they do get some public assistance, but it's mainly private enterprise. I'd like to meet up with them if I have time, but
They want call the P2P grant for up to $50,000 or something like that. That was just announced last week.
She was willing to come to town and talk about that program. I have several friends in Juneau that once a week she comes to their house, drops off a 5-gallon bucket, picks one up, and they take it to the recycling. She takes it to her place, and it's pretty crude. It's just 2 composting bins made out of pallet boards, and she's got either front end loader or a forklift that she just moves it from one side to the other. It's working. She's husband's a gillnet or a troller, but she's kind of at that point now that this could be a full-time activity for her. I know there were people here in town who were thinking about it, and they were thinking about using that facility up by PIA. I've been up there looking around. They've got the hopper up there to turn stuff. They've got the equipment. They've got the dry storage area. I mean, they have all the equipment that a person would need. Up there looking at the PIA log. I mean, Brandon's up there like either once a day or whatever, turning stuff and monitoring stuff. And I mean, I think it's not not out of bounds to think that somebody could make a partial go of it here. I mean, I think a lot of us recycle. I mean, compost anyway. I mean, some people who could
volume does this gallon deal with? How big's your composter bins?
If you go onto their website, she's got all kinds of pictures of it. I don't know how big. Called Juno Compost?
Juno compost
Yeah.
or something like that.
You're gonna try to look into that when you're in Juneau next week, Chris?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
If,
Chris, do we have, I'm sorry.
I'll be at Southeast Conference too, and if you have, if, you know, there's a time set up for you to go visit, you know, tag along, or we can get a ride up to there or whatever. 'Cause I'll see you at the conference.
Yeah, no, I'll see what I can set up there.
If you talk to these people, especially the catch can people, about composting, talk to them about, you know, what they've learned, some very hard lessons they've learned about contamination and about not putting in biosolids from sewage plants and this kind of business, because they've learned some very hard lessons. The problem there is pharmaceutical residues.
Oh,
Bad,
yeah.
bad news.
Do we have any way to know what percentage of the solid waste that we're shipping out is different things? Is stuff that would be could otherwise be composted, or metal that could otherwise have been grabbed, or things that could have been recycled that weren't, or what would the process be to try to figure that out?
Probably have to do some sampling, you know. There are national averages that we're probably, I would guess, we're a little different because we're on an island, so we don't necessarily fit into the national averages of percentages of different types of waste. But I do know that we're close to the national average on like pounds per person per day. That's about 4.5 pounds of waste generated per person per day, and Petersburg is right close to that figure.
That's just because all our stuff is so wet.
It could be, it could be,
Wow, that's a lot.
but
About metal, though, Superior should be able to give you some real good numbers, because the first thing all our stuff goes through is a magnetic field, and then a magnetic flux, which takes off a lot of other stuff and bounces out to aluminum if there's any copper, whatever. So but the question.
Is that our solid waste company, or is that a recycling company?
That is our receiver and.
Republic, isn't it?
Public.
Republic.
No, I meant
Republic.
I meant the
There's-
non-recycled waste.
But they should be able to give you a real good idea just how much metal. But there is a question here, because the cans are a different quality steel. And would a section of pipe, for example, plumber's pipe, would that contaminate the cans enough that they would ding you? Have you ever have they even talked about this?
well, I don't, you know, I don't think the recycler wants, you know, random steel products in the recycling stream, if that's what you're saying.
But they get it. They get it all the time. Have they mentioned this to you?
They have not, but I suspect that it's viewed as contamination and added into that contamination percentage. If it's not something that's, you know, listed in their program as a recyclable, then it's probably gonna be considered a contaminant, so.
Metal recyclers and Republic are two different entities.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely.
the metal recyclers look at heavy steel, scrap steel, there's tons of different grades of scrap, and that's what they're focused on. And Republic gets, if they get a chunk of steel in their stream, they're probably not gonna recycle that, that's probably gonna be trash. But the can will get saved and recycled.
Yeah.
It's just a different business focus.
Not to take up any time, but I do follow this on, YouTube and whatever, and you see these cycles going through, and not only, some of these high-class, really automated places, it goes through the magnet and the cans and all the other stuff is separated just immediately, just automatically. It's just done practically instantly. I'm wondering if our dear friends at Republic are that sophisticated.
They are.
Good.
Yeah.
Good,
They have,
excellent.
their line is, I don't know, 500 feet long, and it starts with a cardboard separator, and then they've got 30 people picking stuff.
Yeah.
There's an eddy current machine that you're talking about that kicks the aluminum out. It's
Yeah.
magnets. It's a really sophisticated.
The pictures I see is they don't throw away any metal. It goes shooting to the side, and it's they sell it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that depend, Carl, if it was, in a recycling bin, which is gonna go through the process you just described, versus a garbage can where it's gonna be a direct shot to the landfill?
There's no sorting of garbage.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And to answer Sunny's question about how do we figure that out, I think that we would have to actually send random bales to somebody to break apart, or we can do it ourselves, which nobody wants to do that job, but, and then sort everything in that bale and figure out what's there. And do it enough times so you can get a good sample.
That's just it, you're gonna have to take more than one bale, you're gonna have to do it out of
Absolutely.
a number of different loads to get some kind of thing
But that, that's a possibility. I mean,
for a fee.
well, not necessarily. I mean, like I said the other day, I had a chance to go on the recycling truck. It was very informative. It was really interesting to see how it all works. And at the end of the route, they dump all the recyclables on the floor, getting them ready for the hopper. I just stood there for like 5 or 10 minutes kind of looking at this pile, trying to sort out what was in there, trying to sort out if there's contaminants in there and stuff. I mean, if somebody really wanted to, they could go up there and just kind of, you had 2 or 3 people, you could go through, how many pounds are they picking up? Like a couple thousand pounds.
You could just take a picture.
Yeah, take a
People could
picture,
analyze
sort it
the
all out,
picture.
what's in there. You can see
You'd
what's
probably
in there.
develop a program to analyze that picture of the trash to figure it out. I mean, get a rough enough.
And the recycling guys are really
concept.
into it. They are really into making the program work. As far as I can tell. They might have just been kind of telling me what I wanted to hear, but
They believe it.
yeah, they do. I mean, they get out and they look. I mean, I think there's some things that can be done to make the recycling program a little bit more efficient. I mean, sometimes people just a simple thing is put in your garbage can right next to a fire hydrant. They can't grab that because they don't want to grab the fire hydrant. They don't want to hit that thing with that arm. I mean, just a simple thing, or just a simple thing like the neighbors, instead of going to your house and then going 300 feet down to my house, I saw several neighbors that just had all their recycle cans right next to each other. He just stood there and grabbed all 3 of them. I mean, he's looking in there, he's seeing what's in there. I think they started taking pictures of some of the stuff that they see that's contaminants in there, send it to Chris, and Chris, as far as I can tell, works with the business owners or the homeowners trying to deal with it.
That's been very helpful, and I've thanked my crew many times for that,
Mhm.
because everybody's got a cell phone these days. So if they run into a contaminated can, we'll tag that can, but they also take pictures of what's in the can and send it to me, so that when I get a call from the customer saying, hey, they didn't pick up my can, and what's the problem, then I have that answer for them. Hey, here's what was in the can.
I think it's more of an education thing, that they don't know what they can and can't put in there, or it's just, they won't know, we'll just get rid of it, or, I mean.
It's a little bit of both, yeah.
But I'm a huge fan of recycling. I will take my recycling to somebody if you won't pick it up. But there's stuff that I learned from watching those videos that I mean, I think if somebody is willing to recycle, they want to do it right. So I didn't know I should be rinsing out my cans. I mean, I think a little education can go a long way.
Well, but what you said there is kind of one of the keys to this whole recycling thing. It's, you want to recycle, you're willing to recycle, you're all about that. I don't know if that's how a majority of the community feels, and we have to find ways, if we're gonna run a recycling program, we have to find ways of making sure that we get those recyclables into the recycling stream, even from those parties who may not be enthusiastic about
Because it
recycling.
doesn't pencil out.
We have to come up, and that's, I guess it's one of the big issues that I deal with is, my role as a department head is, a big part of it is budgetary. So I have to look at what makes sense. What's the best, for the budget, what's best for the finances of the department. I also have to be aware of what the public wants, and those are sometimes competing interests,
So I wonder if it comes to that, if there's that many people that are against recycling, for whatever reason, do we need to explore I'll separate out my recycling and I'll bring it to you. I mean, if we can't get the community to come along with recycling, let's look for an option, so at least those of us that do care have an option.
Yeah, well, that may be, you know, I think I think I'm safe in saying there's support, there's plenty of support in Petersburg for some sort of recycling program. But whether that's, you know, a source separated program, like a lot of other communities in Southeast have that kind of a program, or whether that's continuing with commingles, that's something that, it's a real big question in my mind, especially given the value of recycling commodities now, you know. And as I say, so far, we've only gotten anecdotal feedback. It's been overwhelmingly in favor of continuing with our recycling program the way it is, but is there a way to get more complete data? You know, could we do a survey? Is there some way we can capture an accurate number of, you know, how many, what percentage of the community wants this to continue?
But just going at a simple thing, you've got how many, 1,800 customers?
It's around
1,100.
12, yeah, 1,200.
And how many recycle cans are you picking up? Can't you tell that, I mean, if a group didn't want to be part of the recycling program, they would never put their garbage cans up, the blue cans up. And you would know that those folks don't want it. I mean, just as a simple thing, I mean, can't you tell if...
Well, a lot of folks are doing it so they can get the $6 a month benefit
Okay.
at the lowest service level.
Okay, so let's go down that road then. So
Yeah.
they're getting that discount on their garbage rate, but are they always putting out the recycle can?
Yeah, in almost every case, you know, we did look at that a while back and just to find out, okay, is this being abused, you know? And what we found was very few cases where people were not. And we, you know, addressed those issues as we discovered them.
So I've got a question. What Jeff just said, is everybody putting their cans out? I put my can out, but I might not put it out every week. I mean, if I've got one cardboard box in there, I don't know, maybe I should. Maybe you want one cardboard box, want the truck to stop and spend the time and the energy to pick up one cardboard box. But, you know, sometimes my garbage can is like this full, living by myself, you know, but I definitely put that on every week, but the recycle one,
Yeah, and that's what I'm hearing from quite a few customers out there, is that why put it out if it's only
Is
a
that-
quarter, yeah, why fool with it? You know, I don't want to do that, and so let it go for a month or whatever.
Yeah, we're not monitoring each and every time the customer puts a can out.
And the opposition that you're hearing to recycling, I'm guessing it's not that, no, I really want my stuff to go in the garbage, I just don't, I really don't want it to get recycled. It's probably with the tweaks in the program.
It's all about the cost, right? It's all about the bottom line. You know, the folks that, you know, that I've heard from that don't want to continue recycling, it's to them, it's all about the cost. They would like to recycle if it made sense, you know, cost-wise to them. And for a while, you know, the recycling program was doing pretty well for a couple of years. It's just with the prices of commodities, you know, it's been a lot more challenging to justify it, I guess, on a financial basis.
Would it make a difference if we were to, you won't like what I'm going to say, but if we were to actually separate the material, would our revenues go up or down if we did that? What would your,
You know, if in the same amount of volume comes in, now if it was all separated and
You're talking separating like the ones and twos and the aluminum?
Depends on what it is.
Yeah.
I would guess that Carl's right, and just because, you know, those types of commodities require less effort on the part of the recycler to market. You know, they don't have to send it through the MRF and sort it all and put all the labor into getting everything segregated. They can just take a bale of cardboard, say, and put it out to market if they know it's clean.
But
Would
you
the
might be
cost-
able to say though, that your costs would go up
yeah, that's what I,
proportionally or maybe even more.
that was my other question.
Yeah.
It's gonna be more costly in the long run.
Aluminum cans, a ton of aluminum cans is worth $1,200, you know, a ton. That's pretty, that's a lot of money, yeah, it's a lot of cans.
Yeah.
But in a commingled stream, you already see it, it affects the price that you, the rebate you get for that commingled, but it doesn't approach near the source separated price.
And aluminum is a very small percentage of our commingled. I mean, it amounts to, I think, less than 2 tons per year.
Wow, less than 4,000 pounds.
That's amazing.
Because
Yeah.
it probably is mostly pop cans, I suppose, or beer cans or whatever.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of folks will take the aluminum up to the baler and put it in the dumpster, and as a lot of people know, we donate that aluminum to the Scout program. So it's, you know, it's several $1,000s a year of revenue that we don't get, but we've done that and feel like it's a good thing to do, unless we hear otherwise from the community, we'll probably keep doing that.
I have a question about the trucks. So we have 3 trucks,
Yes.
and so 2 of them are set up for the cans. And the older truck is set up to pick up cans as well as the dumpsters.
Correct.
So that when that older truck fails, we'll have no way to pick up the dumpsters.
That is correct, and we've been phasing out the dumpsters. We have many less than we used to, and we're gonna try to get to a point where when we need to replace that truck, that we've got as few of those out there still as possible. We're trying to go to the
300
300
gallon
gallon
thing.
cans.
So I really appreciate this report. I have a couple questions. So why did we stop using private enterprise to pick up our garbage? You know,
The cost.
so it was more, it costed the city more to contract with private enterprise.
Absolutely.
We can amortize out the cost of a truck. The cans was a one-time expense. But the contractor and the bags, when we started that, was $110,000 a year, out of pocket.
$20,000 just in bags, and then about 90,000 was the cost for the
Using Jeff's question, if we were to change how we did business, in other words, allow that, whoever had, a private enterprise had that contract, if they did, to allow them to separate out the material, even though it may go through us, what have you, could we, in other words, were they, going back to earlier questions, where they actually literally separated out the stuff and were able to ship it off and maybe make a profit on it, you know, from that, which wouldn't be ours. Would it be more advantageous than to go private? I guess the other part of that question to me is I've also heard that we haven't done the maintenance on our equipment and so forth that we've had, and I've heard that, I think Steve said we really do need to add hours for maintenance.
One of the things that we've talked about is reducing the baler hours so that the guys can use that time to do more preventative maintenance on a future baler. And the idea behind it is see if we can extend its life longer. That, you know, garbage trucks, street sweepers, balers, that's equipment that gets incredibly heavy use in very, you know, tough conditions. So any preventative maintenance you can do is likely to, you know, potentially save you money down the road, but it's time consuming. And, you know, right now, if they're not picking up trash and recycling, the baler's open. So there's very little time for them to, you know, shut everything down where they're not having to respond to customers and then go back there and you know, and some of it is we've got to learn, you know, whatever new baler we get, that'll be one of those big conversations. You know, what are the things you found that if you do, extend the life of this equipment? So, you know, that's a conversation we'll have, but some of it comes along with, you've got to have time to do it. You can't have a guy watching the front desk with customers coming and going, while you're in the middle of taking something apart and, you know, hosing it off or whatever is gonna be necessary.
Off of Jeff's question, if we were to add these costs to it, would it be more break even to do it, to go out and privatize it rather than to do it ourselves?
Yeah, I can't, I mean, privatize, yeah, if somebody in town comes forward and says, hey, we'd love to do recycling, I think Chris would probably listen to them. But, we haven't had anybody come forward and say that either. And, you know, the amount of work necessary to separate this stuff here, you know, if it's gonna come in a commingled can, and then somebody else is gonna break that can down and separate it into piles, that's a ton of work.
You have to have a location for one thing.
Yeah, and I'm not so sure anybody could make a go of it with, what, did you say 1,200 customers?
And they need a baler to really make it work,
Yeah.
minimize their shipping
And
costs.
I'm just speaking out, I'm not advocating this one way or another, I wanna, okay, go back to that, but it seems to me that no matter what we do, we're gonna have to add, to do the proper maintenance up there, we've got to add time or personnel or change the way we do, but we've cut the baler hours down to almost about half on that last go-round that I remember.
I can't remember what the reduction was.
The reduction was basically being closed one afternoon, you know, that we would normally be open. I think we said Wednesday afternoon.
It wasn't open
Oh, that
Wednesday
was the
before
latest
we closed it?
That was the latest one, yeah.
Originally, it used to be
Yeah.
open from 9 to 3, now we're open from noon to 3. So we
Right,
cut out
on
3 hours.
weekdays.
But it's
And-
not, you know,
15 hours a week.
the truck guys told me, it's not, just because the Baylor facility is closed to the public, doesn't mean it's closed. They get calls from TFI and other businesses in town who wanna come up and dump all their stuff up there, you know, when they can during the day, and those guys accommodate the businesses in town. So while it's closed to the public, maybe, but it's still
Well,
operating.
We're collecting routes, we're
Yep.
bailing, we're, you know, because the reason we were able to do recycling without, you know, adding staff was reducing hours at the baler. And so we basically added, you know, we doubled the amount of routes that we have to collect. And the proposal to close on one afternoon, so we, you know, would be for us to have an opportunity where we can do that heavy type maintenance that we don't really have an opportunity to do now. You know, an example would be, you know, adjusting the knives on a baler. You know, you got a guy inside, you got a guy outside, you know, you need to be able to have at least 2 people on that job, and if you've got, you know, somebody coming across the scale, you know, you can't do that safely. And so that's being closed that one afternoon would basically, we would dedicate that time to equipment maintenance. That's what we would be doing. We wouldn't be out collecting trash. We would be working on equipment or working on the plant, which we don't really have any dedicated time for that now.
How many employees do you have?
Four full-time staff, and then, you know, we have some support functions out of, you know, the Public Works office, but 4 full-time guys that are driving and working the facility.
I recently visited some friends in Wisconsin, and they have discontinued, in this small community of about 3,000 people like Petersburg, they discontinued their cans, and each household will put out in clear plastic bags, as many as 4 or 5 bags. It's extremely segregated. And then a private entrepreneur comes in with a semi-sophisticated pickup truck with compartments, picks the stuff up, and it's like a police officer. He looks through things pretty closely, and that person's often dreaded when they come in the community. And if something is contaminated, you'll get that person's wrath. Anyway, I just wanted to.
So John, then where does that stuff go after that?
And then it goes to a sorting facility, a county facility, where they don't do any more inspections because they know what's coming in is right up to spec. And there's actually 2 or 3 municipalities within that county that use that facility.
Which one is that, John, so I can look it up online?
In northern Tomahawk, Wisconsin.
Got it, I grew up there, got it.
Lincoln County.
They have
Not
ravens
Tomahawk,
there.
but
Everything I think about when we talk about truck, they get into my can. I can't imagine how any kind of, because we ran into that before. The reason our bags cost so much is we got them so damn thick, so to try to keep the ravens, and they still managed to
did not work.
go through. Yeah, so I mean, this is, I'm not exactly sure how we would do it.
Postcards outside the garbage cans.
Yeah, I got this big heavy rock I put on top of it.
It's on a tight schedule, and people keep their bags within their garages and so forth.
Yeah.
They are there right on time.
About the bags was the strange irony of using unrecyclable bags to collect recyclables. It makes it on a basic environmental level, it is odd, you know, that like using this waste product to collect, you know, to reduce what we put in the waste stream, and I agree with it. That was a hang up I had with it too. Not that you couldn't find recyclable bags, but you get into more seas, thieves, and ravens right there.
So if you could do one thing to reduce what's being recycled or whatever, you know, I don't spend a lot of time in the grocery store, but now I find myself trying to decide if I'm going to buy a glass container or a plastic container. Because I know the glass is going to get crushed up at
Existential
the
dilemma.
dump, and I know the plastic's going to get shipped out. But we're trying to get rid of plastics. When I'm buying plastics, I'm getting it recycled. I mean, how do you educate the public what to purchase?
Well, you
Some
know,
of the ideas.
if you're gonna take all the glass that you buy out of your trash, you know, that's gonna save us a lot of money because we won't be sending that material out at all. We crush it and it stays here. Recyclables right now are, you know, costing us basically the same as, you know, garbage to ship out. So it's a good thing to do if you talk about what's good for the earth and whatever, but, you know, as far as the dollars and cents, you know, when our program was designed, if Carl can stop me if I get off track here, but you know, commodity prices were good, and those recycling goals in the code were made with the thought that, hey, because recycling prices are good, the more we recycle, the more money we'll get for those recyclables, the less we have to pay for waste. You know, it was a thing that as you scaled up the amount of recycling you got, the percentage, you got more money, and at some point the program would have been making money, you know, but now the picture's changed, and so we can say, well, we want to encourage recycling, but what are we doing there? We're recycling more, but it's not, from a budgetary perspective, it's not necessarily giving us an advantage because it's costing us roughly the same for disposal because the commodity prices are so poor. So, you know, and that's, I'm talking about commingled recycling there. If we went back to something like a source separated, you know, or, you know, just where we were collecting maybe higher value commodities like cardboard, you know, separated plastics, you know, some of the plastic is pretty valuable if it's clean and separated as a type of plastic. Aluminum, you know, there's another one, but you know, those things, if we had a dumpster that we emptied every so often, you know, and we just got straight cardboard and sent it out, I think the labor we would have in, you know, collecting the cardboard, baling the cardboard would probably be worth, you know, it would be worth less than the cardboard price. With the, oh, go ahead.
Devil's advocate, if I may.
Yeah.
So remember we used to have like when we used to recycle glass at gas station or by cold storage. Remember that? I loved it. It was really
Yeah.
close where I lived at the time. It was convenient for me. And it was gone. And I'm like, oh, what happened? Why did it get taken away? Because people throw like dirty diapers in there and stuff like that.
Beer cartons.
Exactly, thank you, Randy. And so the devil's advocate in me says, well, that's exactly what happened with, a cardboard collection site, or something of the sort of, we weren't collecting it, it wouldn't have any value anyway, because it'd have had deer blood on it eventually, or something of the sort.
Our volume would go down, because you'd really just get those people that would, they want to participate, not necessarily more of the public. Like we were talking about the rate, there's a lot of people that recycle now that do that because they get a benefit. At the lowest service level, there's a cost benefit, but at my household, for instance, if I didn't recycle, I'd have to size my service up one more, because all that stuff would be in the trash and it would cost me more per month. And a lot of people are doing it because of that. But if you take away that incentive, and go back to source separated, I don't know, how do you incentivize something like that,
Chris, can I ask you one follow-up on that? And
Yeah.
you guys cut me off since I know I missed plenty of this meeting. And I'm not advocating this is a solution, but why not just go like John was saying, the recycling Nazi, or like in Seattle where you're heavily penalized for not, go full on mandatory.
Well, that's a
would that change
decision that
anything?
happens above my pay grade.
It's
Seriously.
in
though.
his
Yeah.
presentation, Jay, where he talks about that. That's an option, would be to go to more, and we use the term mandatory, but what that includes is, price, fixing the prices. If the lowest price garbage can stays the same price and we double the price, I'm making this up, you double the price of every other can, that's a pretty big incentive to recycle, to keep, so communities have done all sorts of things like that. So you make it a price thing, you make it part of someone's job to go around and check garbage cans, recycle cans and garbage cans. And if it's got recyclable stuff in it, you tag it, and the guys, when they come to buy to pick up, they won't pick up the garbage. My mom had to deal with that in Texas. I mean,
What's the staffing cost for that?
great question, but I mean, literally, the recycling police, and looking in your garbage, okay, there's recycling in here, and tag it, we're not gonna pick up that garbage. And you come out and your garbage is still full, with a big note that says you need to go through your garbage and pull out the recyclable. I don't think we wanna go there, but I'm saying,
Nor do I.
you've got communities that have done that.
Yeah.
Just a quick comment on this very point. Hartford, Connecticut, also West Hartford, Connecticut, it's mandatory there that you recycle because of cost, whatever. But they also have the recycling cops, they call it, and they charge.
Yeah.
Like if you have a ragu jar that has a little bit of residue, well, a lot more, it'll cost you $50. So it's $50. That's how much. How do they pay for the cops? By the fines.
By the time you enforce that, when they don't even keep people in jail that are selling heroin.
Oh, well, no.
On the other hand, I bet those people who have to go back and go through their trash, I bet that only happens to them one time.
Yeah, I bet you.
And that's what the recycling guy said. I mean, when they contact folks and tell them that, oh, you got stuff in your garbage can that we can't recycle, they, it sounds like they were pretty receptive. I mean, there's a few people who said, screw you guys, and a week later they said, oh, I need that blue can back. Because they wanted to be part of the program.
Yeah, we've only had one customer that we couldn't bring into line, and we had to, basically just not allow them to recycle it.
Charge them $6 more.
Yeah, so, but everyone else, we've been able to work with them to one degree or another.
I think Chris would prefer, and I definitely would prefer, a much lighter touch on this than that.
Yes.
But, we have not done, I haven't given him a budget to run ads in the pilot. We do PSAs on the radio station because they're gracious enough to do it and not charge us. And, we haven't done door hangers. We haven't done some of those things that might help. And it's worth at least trying for a while.
Yeah.
Can you send it out in the utility bill, or is that gonna
Yeah, we could. Yeah,
Eliminate
do
mail.
stuffer, envelope stuffers and we have, those are all things we can do, and we just have not done them yet.
A lot of people don't get a printed utility bill either.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Online.
that's,
True, is everything's wireless now.
Yep.
I mean, I still get a lot of paper.
In there, when we go out to do the rate study again, is it possible, Chris, to take a look at a couple options in that, as part of that rate study? And obviously, it's gonna be to set the rates for 4 or 5 years, but if you had 2 or 3 options in there, you wanted them looked at and see what the rates would be. One would be continue essentially what you're doing. Second one might be to see and if we could, let's say, increase our the rate of recycle another 5, 10% or what have you, or however you want to define it, and or take more out of the waste stream up at the Baylor facility, however you wanted to do it. And then maybe you want to look at privatizing, what it would cost. Would that be out of the question and cost too much?
that
At least
would
give-
raise the price of it substantially.
Would it?
Yeah, I'm sure. And, when you talk about privatizing, a lot of the privatizing that happens is somebody that's got, resources that can take advantage of an economy of scale. And it's typically the bigger communities, where the bigger companies they work in bigger communities. I don't know that, 1,200 customers in Petersburg is really gonna get, somebody like Waste Management excited about, doing business here. I doubt it. And if you do small business at the cost of doing business in Petersburg, then you're talking about numbers like what we saw, to do recycling collections, which was not, sustainable. So that's why we went
I've got
in-house.
a pretty good friend that was in the recycling business and that was big money in Spokane. They had a couple of balers and I don't know how many employees. And anyway, I visited with him over Thanksgiving and I was talking about this and he's very happy he's out of the business right now. But I mean, as far as new baler and maintenance and stuff like that, he knows people that are still in the business. And I was going to give Steve this contact. And I've got his number. I'm going to call him. I don't know if that would, be some good and free information, I think. So,
Yeah, and
provide that.
one other thing I was gonna add is this conversation we're having about recycling program, whether or not it's sustainable, that may be costing us some money to do it the way we're doing. This is a conversation that's going on, all over the country, in many communities, large and small. We're not unique in that regard. It's not something that's just happening to us, and this is happening everywhere because of what's going on in the markets.
Sure. I guess my last question is, well, what I hear you saying is continue what we're doing for a period of time. Try to, survey our customers maybe, more PSAs, to see if we could increase the recycle rate and do some more.
What would really, oh, go ahead.
Okay, I was trying to, and I'm just seeing, is this where you're at? What I'm trying to do is this where you're at? And then keep watching the commodities market to see whether or not we need to make obviously it goes like a yo-yo. And at some point, maybe either 6 months or a year, you take a look at it. I'm just asking now, is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, what I've been recommending, without more data, I guess, from the public, is just to, for the time being, just kind of stay the course and see where this thing shakes out. That's what our provider, that's what our public's been telling us to do. That's what we're hearing from other people, that have recycling programs, that want to keep their recycling programs. Really, the changes that have happened in the last year and a half, were dramatic. They were unexpected, and no one really knows because the industry's so huge and so complex. Nobody really knows where that's all going to end up. They don't know if it's a 10 to 15-year picture, or if it's 2 to 3-year picture. And nobody I've talked to yet has been comfortable saying, yes, in 5 years, we're gonna be, you know, at this point. It's all kind of in flux, and, you know, so, but again, I kind of go back to, without knowing more about, you know, what the public wants to do, I would just recommend, you know, staying the course for now. But if we get more information from the public, you know, maybe we take a survey or do something to gauge, to get a more accurate gauge of how many people in the community are for it, not for it. You know, then we know more about how to proceed, I guess.
Well, and I think we've got to look too, I mean, if that truck comes, we have to start looking at replacing that truck. It opens up the whole, okay, reevaluate the program again, what's commodity prices done over the last 6 months to a year, and, you know, what's people's price point? I mean, Chris and I were talking earlier today, so, you know, if we put out a survey and said, who's in favor of recycling, it'd probably come back at 90% in favor. Who's in favor of recycling if your trash rate goes up $25 a month? That number's gonna drop significantly. So, you know, in other words, it's how you ask the question. Too.
Sure, and hopefully the question would be phrased like that, because everybody's gonna say, I don't want to recycle.
But you get my point.
Yeah,
is
no,
that,
no.
But if there's a
because
higher
of
cost associated with it.
right,
it's
so
gonna
we don't
depend
know what.
whether I would be wanting to stay involved.
Yeah, we don't know what the rate study's gonna tell us. We don't know what commodity markets are gonna do. We don't really know how much value we'll get. We think we'll get a lot out of communicating more. I mean, you add all that up and you know, we can see major changes in 6 months or nothing really changes and we're coming to the assembly saying, okay, we gotta buy a $300,000 truck. You know, probably another really good time to evaluate what's going on at that point. But
So currently, Chris, if you were to look at like a graph or whatever, I mean, if you had a straight line that was blue that would break even, and a red line that went up and down with the cost, are we below the blue line? Or is it costing us more than we're gaining right now? And has it been trending up and down? You know?
It's been going up and down.
But I mean, are we breaking even or?
We're, you know, we're either breaking even or it's costing us a little bit lately. Because we're operating, you know, we're operating the program, which, you know, like I said, we didn't add staff. We put off buying the third truck, so our costs are pretty low, but there are still costs associated with that. The main gauge I'm using as to whether this is financially good or not is, you know, what's our cost per ton for garbage versus recycling. And that number has been fluctuating, you know, sometimes it's less, like our December shipment, you know, came out to like $96 a ton for recyclables, which is, that's good. And I think our January shipment was 137, which is more than.
What's the basic?
Baseline is 120, that's what we paid for solid waste, for garbage.
I couldn't remember that number, but yeah. So then if you have, like we talked about earlier, if you have recyclable materials and it gets deemed contaminated, then you add 150 instead of 87 or 90 or whatever, one, so double.
Yeah, if that started happening, I mean, that would be a kind of a deal breaker.
Education.
Yeah, because I don't think, you know, for me, it's not an option of whether I'm gonna recycle, I am going to, and you know, I understand it's probably gonna be a lose money situation for the borough. I understand that, but I mean, I don't think I can be a good citizen by saying, I'm just gonna throw all my crap, all my recyclables into the landfill and call it good, because it costs me a little bit more money. I mean, I see plastics in the water all the time. I went with the Baylor guys, I looked down in the pit, what do I see is a bunch of green plastic bags in there, same plastic bags. Now when I'm looking a little farther, here's a recyclable bag that trading union made that was on top of the heap that somebody had thrown away. Somebody's trying to sort out.
There's a strange irony, isn't there?
Huh?
Sorry, that's.
No, it was just like, it was like a message. I was just going But yeah, I think as a good citizen, we have to recycle. And it might cost us some money, but I don't think we can bury our heads in the sand and say, oh, we'll just throw everything in the landfill. I don't think that's a progressive thing to do for me.
That depends on the, then we have to go back to what's the public want.
Yeah, well, yeah.
You know, but it's moral leadership too.
I was gonna say, my dad was
Sorry.
telling me that he was reading an article that Pepsi and Coke are starting to go back and want to start to go back to glass and so even on a manufacturer level, this is, so who knows what's gonna happen in the next few years. It
Have
could
a
be,
colorful landfill with all that different colored glass.
well, I mean, most places are gonna have a deposit, maybe not here,
Probably.
but that's the idea, is to go back to how it was back when they
There are
used to
places
take
that
a
do
deposit
recycle
back.
glass. Our problem is the transportation.
Right,
It's
it's the weight.
shattered by the time it gets there, and so getting glass off this island is just not gonna work for us. But what we do with it now is, it keeps it out of the waste stream. I guess it's not recycling in its true form, but, at least it's not going into a landfill and it's in a controlled
No, and it's not poisoning our oceans in the
That's the
same.
same thing Ketch
It's
Can
like
does,
the
isn't
only
it?
100%
Crushes their glass, they've got a glass.
Exactly, it's totally inert.
Yeah, I believe they have a glass crusher, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that was a conversation I had with,
I think that's true.
Yeah, I don't,
I'm sure the discussion will continue. It's,
So you'll plan to do some surveying then, is that your thinking? That we can go ahead and let-
public survey.
I guess I'll get some direction from the manager on that.
We were gonna kind of wait until we got results back from the rate study on a survey, so might include some questions related to that.
Okay.
But community outreach,
Community outreach
Yeah,
is starting now. I mean,
education, yes.
I'm talking about a survey,
Yes.
meaning,
No, rate study would be prudent first, I'd
yeah,
follow you.
I kind of wanted to have that data in our hands, and so that won't be for a while.
Yeah, one idea that I really like, and I'm not sure how to encourage more of it, is the diversion idea that we talked about. Because, recycling is kind of a numbers game. Was it gonna cost us money? Is it gonna make money? Diversion, if we keep something out of our waste stream, that's gonna save us $120 a ton. Everything that we don't have to ship south is saving us money, so.
In one form or another, recycle or.
Right, well, like if the glass, for instance, it's about 40 tons a year, so it's $4,800. We don't have to pay because that glass never leaves the island. If we could figure out a way to encourage, composting, that stuff comes out of the waste stream and doesn't ever have to go into,
It's heavy.
our baler. Doesn't have to be shipped out, and it's $120 a ton savings. I see that as it has potential, but I'm not sure how we could encourage it or how we can do that, effectively. So I'm gonna be thinking about that, if anybody has ideas on how to increase
One idea.
diversion.
Can we have a freebie tote up at the baler where we can dump our electric motors and stuff like that, and just dump it and, rather than put in the recycle bin, or why can't we put hunks of pipe,
Yeah, and
copper included?
that kind of goes back to, I can't remember who mentioned it earlier, but, if we can look at ways to get the metal out of our
Yeah,
trash.
that'd be an easy way to do it.
Something like that might be a good way to encourage it, and I don't know, I'd have to do some thinking about that, but I like the idea,
Would that be open to the scavengers or the salvage people, not scavengers? Wrong answer. The salvage people?
Well, that would be part of the thought process.
They'd be all over a bunch of copper, but then you're gonna get everything that's high value metal back, of course.
Yeah.
So.
What are we talking about here that's this problem metal in the trash? Are you talking about computers or pieces of pipe or?
Well,
All the above.
electronics,
What are we talking about?
there's ways to get rid of electronics, without throwing them in the trash.
yeah, Deborah takes them all.
Local
Yeah.
business takes
Yeah.
them.
Where mine
Yeah.
go.
Is that the kind of stuff you were saying is problematic that could be easily fixed?
Yeah,
That kind of
just
stuff.
loose pieces of metal that people will drop into the recycle bin.
Like a pipe or
Yeah.
It's in the recycling though, we're talking about getting it out of the recycling or getting
I'm
it out
talking
of
about getting it out of the solid
the
waste
waste
stream.
stream.
And, because I was talking about diversion in general, I like the idea of diversion because if we can divert material, that saves us $120 a ton, you know, it's not a,
So I was gonna say, what if the whole community started generating less trash?
well, that's part of
It's gonna
it.
be a-
We want to encourage that. We want to encourage people to think about, you know, when I acquire something, what's going to happen to this thing, you know, is it, am I buying, you know, or am I buying, you know, 10 containers of, you know, pasta sauce, and I could buy one big one, you know, and have less waste later, you know what I mean? It's just, you have to encourage a thought process of economy, you know, and
My last question here is, or kind of a statement is, there's always a question just how much compostable material, you know, organic material is in our garbage. Is it 10, 15, 20%? But for some people, it's quite a bit. But actually, that has been studied before. Most civil engineering schools put into journals. I bet you if you research that a little bit, you find a real good answer. And this is just part and parcel is, do we ever want to get into the large-scale composting for the community? And the answer is probably no, but you know, it's fun to think about anyway.
there might be an opportunity for a private enterprise or a volunteer organization. You know, up in Haines, there's a volunteer group that does a lot of recycling and composting type stuff.
Yeah.
And so, something like that, you know, maybe there's potential for that around here. I don't
You know, one of the things I wanted Chris, if he has the opportunity to look at the Juneau composting, is how do you deal with the bears? You know, how do you, you know, we've talked about, you know, we've got some vacant lots, we could have a neighborhood composting pile. Well, you know, then I'm attracting a different problem, and I'm hiring more police officers to have to go deal with the, you know, smells, because unless it's monitored, how do you keep people from dropping food waste? And,
Something to contaminate it, or,
yeah,
there you go.
so you end up having to monitor it, and then,
Didn't know that.
The Ravens would be happy.
oh,
Now
yeah.
you made me do lifelong, now I don't still want the vacuum cleaner.
Yeah.
We've got one of those things that are having barrel ones.
They,
Bear-
yeah, I mean, they have competition in the southeast. But we have a contract with them for the next.
Kind of locked in. We did a negotiation process with them last year. But yeah, there are other entities that operate in Southeast. I think two other major ones. Am I right about that, Carol?
Waste
Waste
Connections
Connections and
and
Waste
Waste Management. And Republic, those three companies are the three largest solid waste companies in the world. And they're all in Southeast Alaska.
In the South Seattle
It is in
area.
South Seattle, yeah.
The main MRF is at Third and Lander right downtown, and that's where they separate all the recycles. And they actually load our trash containers onto a rail car that goes by rail from Seattle to the landfill. They save a significant amount of money.
That's our answer. Railroad.
No, that would do it.
Chris, is there anything else that we could be diverting? I mean, I was just thinking, wow, we shipped all that stuff up here, now we're shipping it all back down there. Is there anything else that we could possibly be not shipping back down there?
The diversion thing.
Yeah,
Compost.
yeah, compost is a big one, you know, food weight is a significant part of our waste, and I can't remember what it is nationwide. I think the percentage runs about 15% or more of the solid waste stream is
Compostable?
food. Most of it would be, yeah. But yeah, stuff like that, that's a big one that we could be. And then if we could find an effective way to get out a lot of the, you know, the small metal scrap, there's a lot of metal scrap that goes into the trash. I don't know how much of that it's really realistic to try and pull out, but those are just a couple opportunities for diverting material.
Well, I want to thank Chris for putting this together.
Yeah, it was
Thanks for coming and having this discussion, and something we'll be talking about more, I'm sure.
Yep.
Indeed. So,
Yeah, thanks a lot.
yeah.
I appreciate it.
So it's 8.
This is really well done, thank you. A lot of stuff I didn't know.
Now we just need to do that again, send everybody the little plaque